69. Oh, I didn't pay attention. I'm sorry about that. Glad other people are taking attention. They had some interesting things. They had 3 Adobe applications that they talked about, and they do with Adobe Comp, Adobe Photoshop Fast, and Adobe Photoshop Sketch. So this new iPad is going to have more and greater things to do with photography, which I know a lot of people are very interested in. So the cost of the iPad Pro starts at $799, and there are ups of about another $150 for the more impressive versions of it, plus the $100 keyboard. It will be available November. Didn't give us date, but sometime in November. So Steve, if you do have it, find it. You could before we have time. Find out. They went into a lot about Apple TV, and I just don't understand how Apple TV works. I think we had a presentation here on Apple TV, but they're real proud. They had discounted the existing Apple TVs last spring, so you wondered why they were doing that. They're doing that to clear the inventory because they're coming with the new iPad. Versions. Again, come next month and more up-to-date information on it. Okay, we have a lot of tech. We won't touch the cable anymore. I've learned my lesson here. The iPhone 6S and the iPhone 6S Plus. Let's see, they're going to be, they don't even have a date here. I think they're going to be fairly soon. You can order it on the 12th and it'll be available on the 25th. Okay, I did make some more notes. The most cutest thing they have is a 3D touch capability that it's not only can you swipe things and push things, you can put physical pressure on the surface and it has an effect on the imaging coming through. So they're coming up with a new iOS 8 and it will be available September 16th. which means that's around the corner. So all your other iOS things will be require update very shortly. I think that's I think that's all that I remember from the presentation. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to what Apple is going to come up with? Okay, I want to embarrass one of the people sitting here, Todd Bernhardt. He was his organization called the Flix Academy. I don't know what that means, but that's the term organization that he goes with. They've just been nominated for the Digital Rochester Rising Star Award. So congratulations, Todd, and your whole organization. Is there any other things about it? He didn't make any announcements about how much money Apple made. They didn't talk about the effect of China's problems on the Apple sales, even though he was very proud of telling what a tremendous thing where Apple is having in China compared to all other corporations and all other iPhone or smartphones available. So he had a lot of very optimistic things to sell or talk about. I do know I came prepared not to worry today because it had already been announced in all the financial news that Apple always has a big run up on stock before the announcements, and once the announcements are made, the stock goes down. So that's how the stock market works. I don't understand it, but over the years, we think we don't have to worry anything about Apple.
Yeah, you buy on rumor and you sell on fact.
That's the good words, but on Apple, that's what happens. I don't have any other notes that we're going to talk about.
Well, the keynote is available on Apple's website now, so you can go through and watch it yourself. The expectation is it will be available for download shortly as well. All right. Yeah, so the phone is pre-order on 9/12. Did they leave the old phones in the line at the cheaper model? Well, a lot of the carriers have started this. Instead of giving a carrier subsidy, so the phones have always cost $600, $700, $800. The carrier is paying Apple $600. You get the phone for free because the carrier knows you're going to pay them $100 a month. All the carrier, well, apparently most of them, maybe all now, have started changing that, and they're following the more European model where you pay full price for the phone. Excuse me. Or you have a monthly phone plan. And one of the things that they're doing is an annual upgrade. So you can buy the new phone every year if you want. But the caveat is you still have to add your cellular plan on top of this. So this is just paying for the phone. Then you add down here somewhere. Yeah, you pick what carrier you want and pick the plan you want. So they're changing the way the pricing is. So you're paying more upfront directly to, you're paying directly to Apple instead of Apple waiting for the carrier to pay them, probably. But it does make your phone look more expensive if you want to go that way. Oh, they added a new rose gold too. So let's pick the big one, $950. Who's your favorite carrier? So if you want to pay for full, or you can still opt into a contract. Yeah. And so all the carriers have been fighting each other, switch to us and we'll pay your termination fee and we'll give you lower prices. Right. And that's the way it was last time too, that all the prices are different. AT&T was cheapest, but you only got 250 gigs of data for $15 a month. So that's, that was $60 a gig. When you go to one of the other carriers, it's $10 a gig, but you start at $30 a month. So it's horribly frustrating. And so they have this nice little chart that you can compare, but they don't compare all carriers against each other. You just pick the carrier you want and you can see what their plans are. So 45 a month, 60 a month, 50 a month. So AT&T is still the cheapest, but you only get 300 megs of data, which is nothing. So it depends. Your mileage may vary. The plan you already have may be even better. It's a horrible thing, and we'll anxiously look forward to Adam's article. Right. Which is technically not part of the cellular plan. It's just crazy. Yeah. When you start getting the family plans, when it starts to change. So if you've got three or more people on a plan, that's where it starts to make a lot of sense to really check carefully. Yeah, so it's I would imagine they're all pretty much the same anyway, because as soon as somebody lowers their price, someone else is going to match it. And then someone changes their contract ways. And what they do in part is that if you actually go and look, the amount of data that you buy, that's the only thing that changes anymore. All yeah. Data, they all give you different bundles. So AT&T is the only one that does anything under 1 gig. Some of them will do 1 gig, 3 gig, and 5 gig. The other will do 2 gig, 3 gig, and 6 gig. So it becomes almost impossible to compare apples to apples. Yep. And the price per gig can change too if you go over. It's ridiculous. And some of them have rollover and others don't. But they may not roll over too many months in a row. 1 month. So it's cell phones are horrible plans. Okay. Another one you just throw out there. I know several people have gone to consumer sites and are extremely pleased with both pricing and. Yeah. There's also sort of the off carriers, the Track Phone and the Cricket and Straight Talk. They resell one of the 4 big carriers, often cheaper than the big carriers. One really interesting one that I came across, actually, went up to Ottawa in the spring, and we had AT&T, and to use iPhone data in Ottawa, you could buy a $30 plan that gives you 120 megabytes only. And that's per phone. So if you have a family plan, you buy it for each phone. And so after an article about this, people were telling me that T-Mobile, if you go to Canada a lot, has international data roaming just built in. You don't pay any more for it at all. And so if you're going back and forth to Canada a lot, I would distinctly look at T-Mobile and Mexico, a little bit further from here. Yep. Alrighty. We'll have more details on each of the products as they become available. The massive number of changes were interesting. And we were wondering why the iPad Mini 3s were drying up from distribution, because now the Mini 4 is out. The Mini 2 is the cheap one, and then the Mini 4 is the current one. And Apple doesn't necessarily put these numbers after them, but we have to try to differentiate between them. Because the new iPad was the iPad 3. So when the iPad 4 came out, they couldn't call it the new iPad. That was the iPad with Retina display. But the iPad 3 had a Retina display. Apple's naming. Rick? No, we did not. So in the iPad Pro, which has the bigger screen, you can get an Apple Pencil for $100. So it's a stylus. What'd you say? It was a stylus and a mechanical pencil? Shall we watch the film? It's a 2-minute film. Touch of
course, is the primary method of interaction with iPad. To enhance what's possible with multi-touch and to allow for a new level of precision with iPad Pro, we've designed Apple Pencil. This began by re-engineering the touch subsystem of the display to measure both finger and stylus input on the same plane with optimal accuracy. When you're using the pencil, the system scans twice as often, allowing iPad Pro to capture more points in a single stroke. Highly responsive sensors built into the tip of Apple Pencil work with the iPad Pro display to detect position, force, and tilt. With force data, you can press lightly to get a thin stroke or press harder to get a darker, bolder stroke. Signals emitted from two locations in the tip calculate the angle and orientation to produce broad or shaded strokes. Its unique tip signature allows it to be used simultaneously with your finger. And with incredibly low latency, it has a responsiveness that feels like a true writing or drawing instrument. While its battery lasts for hours of use, a Lightning connector lets you recharge by plugging directly into iPad Pro.
Draining its
Apple
battery.
Pencil is designed to look and feel like a familiar tool. Yet with its carefully engineered technology, working with our most advanced multi-touch display, it delivers something extraordinary. Precision that actually gives you the ability to touch a single pixel.
One interesting thing you may have noticed is that almost never in that entire video did they show the guy's hand touching at the same time, which is one of the big things that I've had accent issues with sometimes, is multiple
Yeah, multiple touch,
touches.
especially trying to draw with the stylus. If your hand touches it too, it thinks you're drawing there now.
And I did say something, my wife might have looked out during that, so I didn't see part of that before, but he pointed out that it will take touch at the same time, because that's the difference between finger and pencil, but that may be still different than putting your hand down on the screen, which you may need to do. But some of this looks really uncomfortable, and you guys kind of hovering above it.
Yeah. And I shouldn't be too hard on the $100 price tag. A Bluetooth pressure sensitive stylus with like a Wacom tablet is $100. No, not necessarily. He still could be hovering.
I think he's hovering. And some of the ones he was like, it was like, yeah.
Available November. See, now all of these great announcements, and nothing is available till November. And the joke is that there'll be an announcement about a week before the pre-orders start. So they're going to announce the announcement of the available to pre-order the product.
So the thing with the iPad Pro that I suspect is that the really big deal in iOS 9 is the multitasking features, like split screen. And so they're going to have iOS 9 come out with these features. The split screen only works on the iPad Air 2. It's the only iPad it works on. And so if they didn't say something about what else it's going to work on at this event, it was going to be very weird to release iOS 9 because this marquee feature that only works on one older
Right.
device. And so I think that's why they pre-announced the iPad Pro. So they normally do it on
Yep. Yeah, so yeah, the October announcement is usually iPads. So now they don't have to have one. El Capitan now. Doesn't seem like it. So the iPad Air line is now the Mini 2 and the Mini 4, the Air 2, and the Pro. But that could change. Yeah. And even in their comparison, There's so many models down through, and this was interesting too. In the Pro, you can only get cellular in the 128 gig model. So that's 1079. That's more than a MacBook Pro. At least the cheap MacBook Pro.
One of the real questions that we had in our staff discussions during the keynote was the iPad Pro, particularly as you get out there, is distinctly in the same price range as MacBook Air and the low-end MacBook Pro. And will there be cannibalization?
Right.
Is Apple trying to eat their own lunch before someone else does? Or is it also possibly a little bit of a trial balloon? The Surface Pro hasn't done fabulously with Microsoft.
Right. But you add the keyboard to this, and it basically is a Surface Pro.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Same price range.
Is Apple trying to see, well, gee, does iPad really have the legs they think it needs to? Or is are there more of the laptops going to be
Right.
here for the end of time because that's what people really want?
Or will the iPad Pro replace the iPad Air? I'm sorry, not iPad Air, the MacBook Air, because the MacBook Nothing is the Retina MacBook Air we expected, but it's not. It's the MacBook Nothing, not MacBook Air. You got to say something for the Nothing. So now the iPad Pro is a touch screen with that 13-inch screen. Add a keyboard. There's your MacBook Air with a keyboard. So I could see them discontinuing the MacBook Air completely, except the 11-inch Air is $799. So having something cheaper. All right, so then they discontinue the 13-inch Air and leave this up here. The 13-inch Air is $999 with the keyboard. So this is $1,079 without a keyboard. What, say $1,200 with the keyboard? Yeah. It's impossible to keep track of everything.
So I think in some ways the most interesting announcement was the Apple TV. So with the Apple TV, we've been waiting for this for a really long time. And it is the first Apple TV which has apps, and it will have an app store, and developers will get to be writing apps for it, which is going to be really, really interesting. The remote is also, it's a little bit like a Wii remote, where you actually, it can see motion, and it has essentially a trackpad, so at the top of it there is touch sensitive. So you can actually control stuff on TV directly by swiping across the top right there.
And it's got Siri built in. And the really cool thing I just read here is it crosses apps. So, I want to watch Longmire. What network is it on? And so then you go to AMC. No, it's not on AMC anymore. Hulu. No, it's on Netflix now. So being able to ask Siri, play Longmire, it searches across all your apps, finds what channel it's on. Channel. We're still going to use those old words now. Find what channel it's on and switch to it. So that's a really cool thing. So you don't have to have Gary Busey coming over and talking into his Amazon. Yep.
It's a full gaming platform. And so it's probably not going to compete with something like Xbox, but for those who don't actually want an Xbox, it's a pretty neat little device.
Now, it doesn't do DVR yet, does it? That was the other thing we were expecting, is live television streaming and DVR capability, especially since it comes with, there's models with different storage. If I get down here, there should be storage somewhere. Yeah, so you can store more apps, but that also might lead to some sort of a DVR capability. Although 128 gigs is nothing. I went to 3 terabyte TiVo. Oh, right, is that what it is, 3264? So enough apps to store. Oh, it's thicker. And again, not available to, well, this one doesn't even say when, it just says soon.
I think they said late October.
Pardon? A lightning to USB cable, so you can plug the remote charges over lightning? So no more replacing that little tiny battery. Jeez. That's all part of AirPlay. That's still there, isn't it?
Nothing
AirPlay's not found even on the tech specs. It's got to be there. USB-C. So the second device with the USB-C port. Yeah. 10100 Ethernet. No, yeah, no analog or digital out, audio out. It's just straight HDMI. All right. Well, lots of stuff we can't buy.
And the remote is Bluetooth 4, so it does not need to, you don't need a line of sight like an infrared remote, which is nice. Mine's always like pointing the wrong way.
Yeah. Or bounce it off the wall.
To control volume and power of your television or AV system.
What's interesting now is there's a feature a lot of people don't realize in the current Apple TV. You can use your existing universal remote. There's a program my remote function inside Apple TV now, so you don't have to use the little tiny silver remote that you lose so easy. You can use your existing remote and program all the same buttons into it. I found that on my Westinghouse TV, the back button coincides with the resolution button on my TV. So it's the same signal, so I couldn't use it. So I use my iPad. You can use your iPad or your iPhone as a remote for Apple TV too. You can get up. No, that's what you send the kid to change. No, it's an electronic change the channel. There's no change the channel anymore. There's no buttons. Anything else about the keynote anyone want to mention? Over 2 hours. Did they have a cute little introductory? Just jumped right into it.
The one thing that was really interesting with the 3D touch stuff of the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus is that there's a new feature built into iOS 9 called Peek and Pop. And you can think of it as contextual menus for your iPhone. So let's say you're looking at you're having a conversation in messages with someone. You can peek at them by touching and pressing just a little bit tap on their icon, and it will show you and give you a pop-up menu of things you can do with that person, like call them or get directions to their house or something like that. And then similarly, if there's any data that's recognized in the message, say let's have lunch on Tuesday at noon, it will recognize that and you can peek on it, and it will show you what your schedule looks like for Tuesday at noon. So that's kind of cool.
It's the hidden gestures we all have to learn now.
Well, so the peek is press and hold a little bit, and then if what you see you like and you want to switch to it, then you keep pressing harder. It's like pushing down through, and then it will actually switch you to the next thing. So it's going to be an interesting thing to learn, but it works throughout. So you can even use apps on the home screen. So you can peek into an app like iTunes, like a music app, for instance, and control what's playing there. Or you could peek into some of the examples they gave. You can peek into the Facebook app and see messenger updates, things like. But there's apps are going to start adding a lot of that kind of stuff because it will save you the going into the app, looking at something, and navigating back out. We do way too much.
Yeah, switching apps is a pain.
Right. And even the app switcher, you can do this by literally just kind of pushing it at the edge, kind of swiping to the right, will switch you to the app switcher, so you don't have to double press and then get back out again. It's interesting that we've learned the point, click, and drag 30 years ago.
Yeah, for 30 years we've been doing point, click, and drag. Yeah, tap, swipe, push harder. All the gestures, yeah. And of course the camera's better, right?
The camera's 12 megapixels and
4K video.
Yeah, it's astonishing. But of course, Apple takes better photos than everyone else. So.
Yeah, even without megapixels, Apple's camera has long been the best of the cell phone cameras.
I was more saying Apple, in their keynotes, takes better pictures than anyone else.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's not fair. My camera will pick up.
yeah,
They gave the cameras to perfection.
yeah.
Live photos, pictures, so whenever you take a photo now, it's also recording video of a minute, a second and a half before, and a second and a half after. So you can force touch on a photo and see the child's facial.
Yeah, if you missed that exact moment, you wish, oh, could I go back half a second?
It's not so much that.
No?
It's literally just animated. So like if you scroll down just a little, you can see the ripples. No, sorry. So in that one, basically the idea is you take a still photo, but it's actually also captured the ripples at the same time. So you don't get to hit a different frame as far as we can tell. And you're not doing anything different at all. It's just a it's like HDR, it's just a load. You don't
That
have
doesn't add much to the size of the file because it's doing a difference.
Yeah.
It basically doing 1.5 seconds before and after, but it's doing all the differences. So if the actual size of the file isn't changing.
So it's less than the size of what a 3 meg video would be, yeah.
That's
What they color to take a picture before you put the
because you're focusing.
Probably, yeah, the button senses you're pushing it. Or you're touching the screen before you're focusing.
You're looking at it.
Yeah.
I'll be curious if it actually ends up being more than a gimmick. I mean, it's one of those things.
It's a cool demo.
It demos tremendously well, but will it actually work, or will it basically get people making
Yeah.
faces and stuff?
A lot of the questions we get quite frequently is why did my camera roll fill up? And well, you accidentally turned on HDR. So lots of cool stuff we can't buy. So you can take a 4K video and shoot and then watch it on nothing. Well, you've got the 5K iMac. There were rumors of a 21-inch Retina iMac. That hasn't come yet, so that could still be later this year. But I imagine all the panels are going toward the 27-inch model. So how many people have got an HDTV? That was the big thing, with the push to HD. Well, that's all old now. You got to get a 4K TV. But there's no 4K content yet. So you can shoot your own 4K and buy your own 4K TV. Yeah, and you need a super internet connection. YouTube does do 4K streaming if you have a high enough bandwidth. Yeah, and you pay for all the extra bandwidth. Yeah, they brought back that eyesight name a couple of generations ago. Yeah.
Front camera now, I use the front display for flash.
Yeah, it flashes the whole screen.
That's like Photo Booth did on the computer. Yeah.
Except for it's been designed so that when it flashes it, you can actually put on 3 times the brightness of the old way that you used to be able to do it.
So it flashes even brighter than the screen normally is.
And it has sensors that adjust to the color temperature of the environment.
Yep. Well, they've done that with the rear flash, that 2-tone flash, where they can blend the colors together to give you a more natural flash. Did they announce a ship date for iOS 9? 16. So, of course, our usual suggestion for average folks is wait till 9.0.1, which usually comes 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. And it'll fix the problems that everyone else can find. You can always tell the pioneers by the arrows in their back. All right, anything else on the announcements? Anyone know of? Nothing new in the Mac world. Yeah, I was going to try to find that link again. Let me get to my Gmail. Bring that. So there was an article. It was the New York Times, right? There was an article in today's New York Times And am I in the right account? No, I have to switch to a different account. Let me see if I can just find it on the New York Times. About users groups. Oh, you linked to it? And you skipped the paywall in the link? No one never knows. Yep. So it's I just started reading it. The first couple of paragraphs are kind of interesting, but it's basically a lot of the things we've been seeing here is that the younger kids don't need the users group. You know, everything's on the internet, but a lot of us, you know, come here. We know the stuff. We've got the internet, but we like the camaraderie. We like the social aspect of it. And there was an auto playing video of an Apple II disk drive. Is it in this? Yeah, there was another Apple I up on the auction block. I think it was number 52 that no one knew existed anymore. And there have been some radical price differences. I think one of them went for almost $1 million to the Henry Ford Museum, and then the next one was only $300,000. So it was, yeah. And then, well, there was the one that recycled. Did you hear about that one? Some woman brought in a huge box. No, now it's playing. Someone brought in a huge box of computer crap, she said. Her husband had passed, and she brought all the stuff into the recycling center. And they found an Apple I in the box of computer stuff and sold it at auction for like $300,000. And their policy is to split the proceeds of any big items with the donator. But they never got her name. She just dumped the box off and left. And so, people are trying to find her to give her the money. It's pretty interesting. So be very careful about what you throw away or recycle. Keep it for 20 years. Should we let this play? Let me, can I get to full screen? Yeah. Anyone remember the Apple Disc II? I probably have one in the basement.
I used to be teased for being a nerd. Now I definitely view it as a compliment. If I use one of my old computers that still run, I can't even explain the emotion that I'm feeling. It's more than reminiscing. It's a very strong memory retrieval. I never threw away any of the computers I had. And it ended up becoming a collection without consciously collecting them. You wake up one day and you've got 15 of these things in the basement or your bedroom or whatever. It just hit me that these were important devices and that this was the beginning of a whole change in society.
At first when he was telling me about his collection, I thought, oh yeah, he's a collector. But then when I saw it.
Old computers are fascinating because there is so much variation. In the early days, there wasn't a common platform. It was kind of like Beta and VHS, but on steroids. And they just made things a lot more interesting. The collection at this point in time, it's very hard to say what it would be worth, but it would have to be over $1 million. I probably have that in it, maybe even more. None of my 3 sons are collectors. They must have gotten their mother's genes in that regard. I think within one family, I may be enough of that.
What does your family think about your obsession?
Well, the nice word is eccentric. We've created an Apple pop-up exhibit at Kings Market Shopping Center in a former CompUSA building. If there was such a thing as an inanimate object having a personality and having charisma, then Apple is off the chart. Let's show them where it came from, because the history is going to be important. At some point, we would look back and go, well, why didn't we say that? where can I get one of those? Anything that is in the collection, no matter how primitive, to a previous generation, it would be magic.
I can't wait
The
to see
transparent
the
Newton.
end result. It's going to take a couple years. It has taken many to get to where he is now. And I just can't wait to see the end result.
It's never complete. A collection is never complete. The universe of computers is big enough that I don't see it ever being finished. My goal now is to have a museum that will outlast me, that will be more of a legacy.
There's several people around the country that have these sort of, ad hoc museums. But I think it's the Boston Computer Museum has a permanent exhibit of a lot of this stuff too. Keith?
I went on to Amazon today.
Yeah, go to Amazon and see what you can find.
Now, the iWaz book,
Yep.
hardback, 1 cent, free shipping.
Oh, the iWaz book that talks about his early days at Apple on Amazon for 1 cent. Use our Amazon referral link. What's our referral fee on a cent?
I got the Steve Jobs book, and I got the one on Xerox Park. And I think for all 3 books, I paid a total of about $4, including shipping.
iWaz is a pretty good book. The Stephen Levy book, Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution, that actually starts at MIT and Digital Equipment Corporation. So that in the late 60s, that sort of sets the setting for what became the personal computer revolution in the 70s. That's probably one of the best early history books. It's up to 2 cents now, Keith. It doubled in price. This is the version I have with the black cover. Yeah, here's 25th anniversary edition of Stephen Levy's book. I might have to look at that. And then, of course, Triumph of the Nerds is one of the best early movies. Noah Wyle as Steve Jobs and Anthony Michael Hall as Bill Gates. That was a TNT TV movie, Pirates of Silicon Valley, based on Robert Cringely's book Triumph of the Nerds, I think it was. And that movie ends just when the Macintosh hits it big. And there's a great scene with Steve and Bill. So Steve and Bill were very similar personalities. Everyone else was wrong, and they knew the best way to do it, except when they were together. And Bill always was acquiescing to Steve. And there's this great scene where Steve is accusing Bill of stealing the Macintosh and copying it. And I trusted you. I brought you into the family. And Steve's saying, well, ours is better. And Bill says, it doesn't matter. Ours is good enough. And good enough wins over better. All right, anything else? Yep.
Saturday, October 10th, Walter Isaacson speaking at Kodak Hall. It's so I'm not sure how available tickets are. On Saturday, you'll probably be through, but probably they are.
And this is the Walter Isaacson book is what the not J.J. Abrams, the other big director, the official authorized movie is based on. Aaron Sorkin, yeah. Danny Boyle's the director, yeah. So there have been like 4 Steve Jobs movies have popped out already, but the official one is still coming. I also heard that Bill Nye is coming to town soon. Don't know when, but too many people interesting to go see. Surf, the father of the internet, yeah. No. Adam Savage of the Mythbusters. Town Hall. I hate when they don't put the dates on their blog entries. So Tuesday 19th, Bill Nye. Yeah, Thursday, February 29th, Bill Nye was in town. All right. Anybody have any other news? As the spinning beach ball pops up. Shall we take our break? Might as well take a break. Shirley's got some nice goodies out there. And feel free to fill the donation cup. And we'll start back up again about 15 minutes or so with Adam Engst, publisher of Tidbits magazine, Take Control Books, many other things. Just what you said, you just celebrated your 30th anniversary at 25th at Tidbits? Yep. All right, and if anyone has any dues they need to update or renew, you can come down and pay them with me. Anyone have a MagSafe? Oh, you got the power cord. MagSafe 2? No. Yeah, if you haven't signed in yet, there is a sign-in list.
They'll be giving away a Mercedes-Benz later. You can't do it.
I can go grab it in the car. Yeah, it's in the other bag.
It's not. I can wait.
No, it's all right. I can go get it. Someone else may want to come up. Let me pause the recording. Pause. And remind me to start recording. You're gonna check anyway. $30.
Oh, okay.
September should be every Apple fan's favorite month.
You need audio?
Apple has its next big event planned. Here's what I'm expecting to
Are you going to have audio, Adam?
Yes.
Okay.
I need to show the feature how you kill audio. Actually, no, I don't need to. Sorry, I don't need to just
Okay.
anything else. That's the feature instance already that says kill.
When whatever. All right, if we could have everyone start coming back in, we can get going again pretty soon. All right, so we got everyone back in. Everyone get on the sign-up list. We like to keep record of who's coming. Let me switch back over here. So we have with us Adam Engst. Oh, yeah, we'll need to move the microphone. And we decided to let him come a little earlier this year to not brave the snowstorm we had, was it 2 years ago? At the November meeting, I think. And Adam has been, and his wife has been publishing the Tidbits magazine, electronic magazine. It was the first, bring that up there. Oops, and now we got the delay on the Hangout. Mute. The first electronic newsletter for the Macintosh.
And oldest electronic technology publication on the internet.
Yep. And the remember your 7.1 Pro book that included the disk with Mac TCP in it to get on the internet? Yep. Is that turned on? Slide up, maybe? There we go.
Ah, there we go.
Yep.
Okay.
I still have a copy of mine somewhere on my bookshelf.
I have the whole shelf of them.
Yeah.
Because there was all the editions, we have translations. It was great seeing those. You get these translations back of your book, and you'd open up and you'd recognize the screenshots and you know what chapter it's in and everything, but it's in another language. It's really, really freaky. It's like I wrote that, sort of.
Yeah. All right, so without further ado, we'll turn it over to Adam.
Thank you. So what was not talked about at the keynote today is OS 10 10.11 El Capitan. And Apple did announce a fair amount about this back at the Worldwide Developer Conference in June. And it has been in public beta since sometime in July. So you actually could have seen all this stuff. This machine's been running it for a while. This is a 20, I don't know, 12 MacBook Air, somewhere in that range. And so what I wanted to show you was the kind of the new and cool stuff in El Capitan. Now, a little bit of introduction first. How many people know what El Capitan is? Okay, good number of people. It's a mountain in Yosemite. This is intentional on Apple's part.
Yeah,
So-
the Yosemite logo was half dome.
Yes, yeah, Yosemite logo was half dome. So first Apple had the cats, right? We had, panther and leopard, panther and tiger and leopard and snow leopard and lion and mountain lion, and that was the end. And two of those releases were interesting because they were fix-it releases. So we had leopard, then we had snow leopard, we had lion, we had mountain lion. You don't hear anything about leopard or lion these days, but snow leopard and mountain lion are still pretty popular among people who said, well, it's working, why should I change it? Snow leopard in particular. And so Yosemite was another major release. We had the first California landmark name was Mavericks. And then we had Yosemite most recently. And so by using El Capitan, Apple is indicating that basically they're doing the same thing they did with mountain lion and with snow leopard. They're fixing stuff. There isn't a lot that's big and new and flashy in El Capitan, and that's intentional. And frankly, I think it's really good. Yosemite was not terrible by any stretch. Lion was terrible. But we really need to have Apple step back periodically and just not change things so much. I think a lot of people would actually prefer if they didn't change it at all and they just released, we're at 10.10.5. Wouldn't it be nice to have 10.10.6 and 7 and 8 rather than moving all the way up to 11? Well, we seem to have lost that battle. So we're getting annual releases once a year. We expect this to be coming out in mid to late October. Third week in October would be the traditional date. And it will be free, like the last few versions of the operating system have been. And interestingly, it will run on everything that Yosemite runs on. And Yosemite runs on everything that Mavericks runs on. And Mavericks runs on everything that Mountain Lion runs on. So pretty much any Mac that you've got running anything from Mountain Lion on newer, absolutely guaranteed. And it turns out there's actually even some Macs that run Leopard, that's shipped with Leopard, however many years ago that was, that are compatible all the way up through.
The one big caveat, especially on that 2007, 2008 machines, is Yosemite says it will run in 2 gigs of RAM. Theoretically, it does.
Yeah, don't even try.
4 minimum. Some of those old machines can go to 6.
Yeah.
The more all machines today come with about 8.
8 is entirely reasonable. If you're buying a new machine today, don't stress about 8. 8's good. If you want more, 6, nothing wrong with 16. That'll make your life better. Unless you're doing anything serious, 32 is overkill. So, so El Capitan, what's new? So there's sort of 2 basic thrusts for the kinds of things that Apple is doing in El Capitan. One is new or just completely rewritten apps. And the big one actually that everyone is going to see probably the most obviously is Notes. And that's where I'll start. Because I partly took my notes for the talk anyway. So Notes, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because actually, once you've started using the new one, you can't remember what the old one looks like. But let me tell you, this is a way more impressive version of Notes. You can do things like, you can format stuff as titles, as headings, as body. You can make checklists. So I could have things to pick up at the store. So there's milk and bread and cheese, and then I can select all these, and format as a checklist. And then I get this nice little thing that I can check and uncheck. So that's kind of new. Having being able to do nice lists, you can also, here's a screenshot, you can drag pictures in. And so you can, anything that's a graphic, you can pop into your notes. You can even put in locations. So I came over here to Maps, and I happened to be looking at Seattle, and clicked share, and I said, share to notes. And it asks me what note I want to put it in. Put it in that note that I'm working on. I save, and you can see, obviously it shows up again, but there's my location, and if I double click on that, poof, it takes me back to maps. So if I've moved somewhere else, and I double click on this, poof, right back to Seattle. So you could imagine using notes, if you were planning a trip, for instance, that you could actually, as you're going, grab images from websites, grab locations that you're going to go to, all sorts of stuff, print it all together, and then get a nice note. The other thing that's big in Notes is it has iCloud syncing. So Notes had syncing before, but it was weird and didn't use iCloud. And honestly, I don't think I even quite realized that at the time, but it didn't, and it was just completely separate. And so now it does use iCloud syncing, and that's a good thing, I guess. So. So Dennis is asking if this is an attempt to sort of compete with things like Evernote. Honestly, I don't. There are a billion note apps out there, and just tons and tons and tons of them. And so what Apple is doing is they're saying, you have to be this tall to play. And so Notes in iOS 9 will have the same iCloud-based syncing. It will look almost the same, particularly on an iPad. It'll have exactly the same features. So it's something that Apple is giving us to say, anyone who has any Apple device needs to be able to take notes in something. We're going to give them a Notes app, which at least doesn't suck. It's not going to be the level of something like Evernote, which can do, you can drop PDFs in there and it'll do text recognition on them. It'll even do it on photos, won't it? I haven't used Evernote in a long time. So if you have a photo that has text in it, it'll be able to actually OCR the text in the photo. So, and so if you're a serious note taker and you've already got a solution, don't even worry about this. But if you just want something to be able to take some notes in and occasionally, you don't have to go buy an app or find something that's also going to sync to your iPhone and your iPad without buying another app, Notes is going to solve that. So it's a good app. It's not stunning. I won't, but hey, it works. You can have outlines, you can have lists. It's good for that kind of stuff. So now perhaps the other app, which is sort of most changed, is not one you're likely to see a lot unless you're a sysadmin, which is Disk Utility. And they've completely and utterly done haven't a chance to play with it much, but you still have the sidebar over here. This is where you manage your hard disks. So you can see this is the disk. It's the Apple SSD media that's in my MacBook Air here. The volume is called Zephyr, and it shows you a little bit of the usage, which is kind of new. You can still do first aid, and you could partition. This is my boot disk, so I can't partition, erase, or unmount. You can get some technical information. I don't think there's any new features here at all. It just looks completely different because Disk Utility is one of those apps that probably hadn't changed since 10.0. So, it worked. Apple didn't see the need to change it. They didn't. Probably the main thing that I'll be curious about that I haven't had a chance to hook up another disk to this machine and play with it is that there's a sort of a funny partitioning interface in the old one, and I wonder if they've rewritten that. So. It's an interesting one. Okay, so those are the two kind of new and interesting apps. Another app that's gotten some change here is Maps, because you'll notice a new button here, transit directions. This is all that's new in Maps. Okay, it's nice to have transit directions, but the real problem is that it has them for 4 cities: San Francisco, New York, DC, and Baltimore. I don't know why Baltimore.
It's close to DC.
It's close to DC. Maybe it's the same. Maybe it's the same public transit system. I don't know. So it's nice that they've got transit directions, but unless you're going to one of those 4 cities, it's almost entirely useless. Stick with Google Maps. It's not going to help you there, but that is one of the things that they pulled out. This is how you can tell that El Capitan is not a big feature release, when they're telling you that yes, we've got transit directions for 4 cities. Oh, actually, I'm slightly underplaying this. It has transit directions for a lot more cities in China. So if you're planning a trip to China and you want to take the bus, you'll be all set. I don't recommend this. Okay, so the other apps that that get some noticeable changes, we have Safari. Now wait for just a second here, and we will wait for Macworld to do their evil things. Because one of the things that I hate about Macworld these days is they have autoplay videos. And it starts talking, and I don't want it to stop talking. And if you notice, there's a little button in the tab right here where you can mute tabs. Because if you're like me, and I hope you're not because I have way too many. I tend to have like 40 or 50 tabs open at once. Some tab starts talking and you can't find it. And it's driving you mad. And so with this, you can see which tabs are talking. If I switch here, that one's, and actually switch here, you know, they will just start talking.
Because the new iPhones are coming. Apple has its next.
And you can stop it and do whatever you want. And whoops. One click stops or starts, and if you click and hold, you can unmute this tab, other tabs, or see which ones are actually, you know, being the evil ones, and I believe switch to them. Yeah. So in any event, that's a really, really nice feature. It's not truly innovative. Other browsers have had this, but it is still extremely welcome because there is nothing more annoying than going to the Macworld site and having them start talking at you.
It looks like there's a master mute in the address bar.
Master mute in the address bar.
Well, Erica.
I'm guessing that's for the current tab. It's just basically saying for the current tab again. So, yeah.
It should be a master mute because it's in the address bar, not the tab.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing you'll notice here is, see this little icon over here on the left for my Gmail? The Safari has added this concept called pinned tabs. And so if I were to quit Safari and relaunch it, you'll notice it remembers it and it's there and it will just stay there. And the beauty of the pinned tabs is this is great for web apps, things like Gmail. Jeez, just die. Oh. So, sorry.
So that wasn't the current tab.
No.
That wasn't.
So that was
mute.
okay. So let's check this again. Okay. No, I've killed it finally. So yeah. So it does seem like it's either master mute or at least whatever else is playing.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the pin tabs are really useful for when you don't want a tab to go away, because if you'll notice, if I have a new tab here, I get a tab. I can close 1, 2, but when I close this last one, it all goes away. It's not actually seeing my pinned tab as something that can be closed. So the idea is that if you have Gmail or whatnot, you can't accidentally be closing it. And similarly, you can't, I mean, I think this is true. Let's verify this. Mail.google.com. If I try to go there in this tab, oh, nope, I take it back. It's not as smart as Firefox, I think. Firefox, if you try to go to the same tab again, it will just take you to the previous one rather than letting you load the same thing over and over and over again. So, but for web apps, I keep doing that. For web apps such as Gmail, Google Docs, Zoho has a lot of things. If you use Basecamp, there's a lot of tools out on the internet now where you really are using an app in the browser window, and it's annoying to have that just treated as a browser window. So being able to pin those is useful. Another thing you'll notice, let's see if I can, okay, look in the lower left-hand corner here. Okay, so you see how it says in the lower left-hand corner, it says go to label right down here? That's the new status bar. And the status bar now hides and shows itself automatically when you go over it. Previously, it was you either had to show it or hide it, and it was always there. So minor thing, but you might like that. Something I don't think I can't show this in any useful way. Safari now does AirPlay in a better way. So let's say you have an Apple TV and you want to play a video from the web onto your Apple TV. You used to be able to do AirPlay from your Mac and show the whole screen over on the Apple TV, and you could maybe put the video in full screen mode. But now Safari's AirPlay is smart enough that if you're playing a video in Safari, it will just AirPlay the video and not all the rest of the Safari window. So this is something that you don't really think about until you try to do it, and then you're going, well, that's stupid. Why does it show the whole Safari window? And now it doesn't anymore. So a little bit of a tweak there to make AirPlay work the way you expect it would. And then the last thing, if I get up a couple more tabs here. Command 1 to, oh, I've got them set to bookmarks still. Okay, where was this? Tabs. Use Command 1 through Command 9 to switch tabs. So previously in Safari, Command 1 through Command 9 were your favorites. And so that's why when I hit Command 1, it did tidbits, and Command 2 did speed test. Now, because I've switched it to use Command 1 through Command 9 uses tabs, let's close this, and I'll come over here, yeah, whatever. Linode dashboard. Okay, so now if I hit Command 1, it switches me back to the tidbits tab. 2 will be the take control tab. It's not the take control tab. Go to the right place.
1 was your Gmail tab.
Oh, 1 is sorry. 1 is Gmail. 2 is tidbits. There we go. Yeah, 1 is the pin tab. 2 is tidbits. Or 2 is now take control. Doing the wrong thing. Okay, 2 is tidbits. 3 is take control. 4 is the phpMyAdmin. 5 is Linode. So it's a way to move between your first 9 tabs. You get to pick whether or not you prefer it's the favorites or the tabs. So minor little feature in Safari, but hey, if you always wanted to access to those tabs via the keyboard, now you got it. Okay, onward to Mail. So in Mail, the main new thing that you'll see are gestures. These will only work, obviously, if you have a trackpad. But you can swipe to the left to get to trash something, and you can swipe to the right to mark as read. And I think there's an option. Let me see here. Viewing, maybe. There's so many options now. I thought there was an option. Oh, I know what it is. It's if we swipe mark it as read. It's not an option. If it's read, you can mark it as unread with a swipe to the right, and if it's unread, then you can mark it as read. So a lot of people, me included, I don't like to file stuff. I don't like to manage things or move stuff around. For me, a message is important if it's unread, and I will deal with it. And if I have already looked at it and I need to deal with it again, I will mark it as unread again. And so I would do a lot of this swiping and clicking there. Boy, I get lots of analysts who want to give me their insight now. Really, guys. So the gestures are the same as Mail on the iPad, in particular, if you've been using that. So a lot of what Apple's doing here is trying to bring it to be the same kind of thing. Now, something that I'll show you more generally is Spotlight. Spotlight searching has changed a bit, but as a result, so has finding and searching in Mail. And so in theory, if we say Mail from Josh today, no, that's in Find. Edit, Mailbox search. Mail from yes, see that's the trash right there. So yeah, that's the other one to be able to get rid of that.
And if you keep swiping, it actually trashes it, right?
Let's see, can I ditch this one? Yes, you just got to keep going. You can tell I don't actually use Mail. Never really liked the program. But the search, you see, I did a search on Mail from Josh today, and I got the 3 messages. Mail from Tanya yesterday. So there's the mail from Tanya yesterday. So this natural language searching, it's not seriously natural language, but I think you can get a little bit, you don't have to go do quite the, mail colon, from colon Tanya Engst at Tibbets.com, age equals yesterday or something like that. You don't have to do that kind of weird syntaxy stuff. So I don't know that I would quite call this natural language. It's not like you're talking to the Star Trek computer, but it's a lot closer. So you can do a lot more of that kind of stuff. Yeah, though even the Fantastical stuff, I run into problems all the time. And actually, because it's doing too good a job. So for instance, Fantastical does natural language events. So if I want to say, lunch with Dennis tomorrow at Aladdin's, it will make me an event at lunchtime with Dennis at Aladdin's. The problem is that I always want the location in the description or in the title. I don't want to have to go and find the location field somewhere down in an event to see where it was. And so I'm constantly having to correct it whenever it wants to do that sort of thing. So I actually tend not to use the natural language stuff because it's natural language what it wants, not what I want. Okay, so let's see. I don't know if we'll get anything here or not. I had to find. No, it's not doing it. So in theory, Apple Mail is supposed to do a better job with sort of letting you create events and things. I was hoping that it would find some of these, see some of the schedule things that's going on and be able to give me events. This is actually nothing new. Apple's had something called Apple Data Detectors for literally ever. I mean, I think it's been since, may have even been predating macOS 10. Where the idea is if you say something like, leave the house at 9:40 tomorrow, that it would say, ooh, that might be an event. And it would actually make a little link or give you a drop down or something such that you could make an event saying, leave the house at 9:40 tomorrow. And in theory, that's better in the current version of Mail. I haven't been able to see it work in a useful way, so I don't know. I've always found that it's not really helpful. That usually what it identifies is part of what I would want to have in an event or a calendar event, but it's usually just easier to go and make the calendar event myself. So not a huge win there. And then the last thing, notice how when I pull this message up in its own window, it doesn't take over the entire screen, which is a nice thing. Previously, I believe it took over the entire screen when you were in full screen mode, which was completely useless because you couldn't see anything else behind it. So I'm not sure, again, that that's a huge win. Oh, and it docks it. Sorry, that's the other part of that. So you can get back and forth to this just at the bottom of the screen when you're in full screen mode. How many people here use full screen mode? How many people use full screen mode regularly? Okay, a couple. Yeah, it's one of those things, I mean, Dennis and I were talking about this earlier, that full screen mode is an interesting beast because it solves problems that a lot of us don't seem to have. And so it's always interesting who found that it fit their working styles better. But
we always get questions of where'd my menus go?
Yeah. Oh, well, you're going to like this one then because, not there, not there. Here. Where'd my menu bar go? You can now hide the menu bar when you're not in full screen mode.
Jeez. That's great on an 11-inch, Air, but on a 27-inch iMac, I got more than enough screen space.
I can see my menu bar. So in any event, so if you want to hide your menu bar because you really like having it disappear, you can now do that. It's in the general preference pane.
It's like hiding the scroll bars too.
Yep. Or hiding the dock, that kind of stuff. It's an interesting issue because Apple used to be very big on affordances, on discovery, where you had to. So for instance, they're not doing this anymore either. So for instance, Open used to have ... after it, to indicate that it was going to do something, open something else. It doesn't do that anymore. I actually don't know if I don't know if that changed in El Capitan or not. I haven't looked in a while. But and tag still does. That's interesting.
I think it's different because you're in the Finder. It just opens whatever you have selected.
You're right. You're right. Let's check that. Yes, there we go. So it was just in the Finder that it was different because I was in that. But in any event, my point is that Apple used to be very big on discoverability and affordances. Now, particularly as they got into the iPhone and the iPad, where their screen real estate is a huge priority, they hide stuff. They hide stuff all over the place. And it seems that they're bringing a lot of that towards the Mac, again, with the ability to, if you're in full screen mode, well, if you're in full screen mode, you wouldn't want to have the menu bar showing, is their theory, I guess. So they hide it. And so that's why they're adding this feature in general to be able to hide the menu bar, hide and show it automatically whenever you go up there. I think it's one of those things you want to be very careful to turn on if people who are using your computer are not necessarily super familiar with it. Okay. One of the other things that tends to get hidden, and I'll try to show this. It's been really flaky in the beta. Speaking of losing things, if you have a big screen, you might lose the cursor. This cursor isn't really that easy to see. If it's down here, where is it? And you can start moving around, you don't see it. But in El Capitan, if you wiggle it, it's supposed to get bigger. It usually does it once or twice after you log out and log back in, and then it doesn't work anymore. So, but in theory, if you have big screens, just wiggle, and the cursor will zoom up in size. Hopefully, that will be working by the time they actually release, because it doesn't work. If you don't like it for whatever reason, I found that there is a hack to turn it off. If you, for some reason, find that it's really irritating when it zooms up on you or it zooms up too easily, so it is possible to turn that off. And if you search on the internet, you'll find it. It's not too hard to find. The other really big feature that's come to OS 10, and this is the Windows people are laughing at us a bit on this because it's been in Windows for ages, is you can now split the screen. So if you click and hold on a zoom button, notice how it it disappears. I'm trying to say, click and hold on the zoom button. It will move the current app to half of the screen, and then the other half of the screen, you get to pick what window you want to zoom up. The only problem is that I can't see anything useful over here now, because I probably don't have much. But so I've got a Finder window. Let's get Safari running. So if I put Safari, I can drag Safari to either side, and this is where it gets frustrating because I have to get out of full screen mode. There we go, finally. So basically what I've been doing is by clicking and dragging on this full screen button, I can pick which side of the screen I want the app to expand to, and then it lets you choose among the windows that are available for the other side. And now this is a full screen, you are in full screen mode here. So this is a whole desktop. You can see if I go into Mission Control, you can see Notes in Safari has its own desktop space. And you can drag your window back, your slider back and forth, so you can figure out how much space you want to allot to one or the other. I'm guessing that if you have a bigger screen, you'll get a little bit more control over this. Obviously, on a relatively small screen, I don't get to change it by a huge amount. It's also possible that it's related to the apps. So if you have an app that just can't shrink too much, it won't let you. The other way to do it is if you go into Mission Control, you can, let's see if I can do this. Nope, not gonna let me do it with that one. Okay, you can drag a window into a space that has another window in it. So here I've made a space with two Finder windows, and now I've got these side by side. And again, I can shrink, and see these ones let me shrink it more. I get more play. But this could be really nice. I don't know if, still don't have to do this very often, but every now and then I have to compare two Finder windows side by side and see exactly how they're similar or different. And you're always trying to like line them up so that it's exactly the same number of lines in each one. This would be a nice way to do that. So to get out of split screen mode, you just click the zoom button for one of them, and you'll notice it does keep the other one still in a full screen view, so you'd have to take that one out too if you wanted to get both of them out of full screen mode. I don't have a feel for whether or not split screen is going to be a really big deal for people or not. It may depend a lot on your screen size. Personally, I'm working on a 27-inch iMac with a 27-inch Thunderbolt display next to it. And so I never use desktop spaces, and I just arrange my windows to be the right size. So I have a hard time seeing how this will change my way of working on that machine. On this machine, where I only have one screen and it's relatively small, if I'm doing something where I'm trying to, you know, research something on a web page and write in BBEdit, I could see really wanting that. So you might want to play with it on different machines. Okay, the other app that has some changes, and I can't actually even show them to you in any useful way, is Photos, which you can now add locations to Photos. Something that was annoying in the initial release of Photos that came with Yosemite was that it would read locations. If you'd taken a photo with your iPhone and it knew that you took it in this room and it had a pin in that spot. But if you took a photo with the digital camera that didn't have a GPS chip in it, then you couldn't add a location to that photo in Photos. You had to do it in another app before you imported, which was annoying as all get out. So Apple fixed that, and they've also added third-party extension support. So in theory, there should be some more sharing capabilities and possibly some editing capabilities. We're not really entirely sure yet because that requires third-party, the developers to actually do some interesting stuff. So how many people here have switched to Photos, actually? Good, interesting question. I mean, everyone else is still using iPhoto or Aperture? Well, it's still around. It isn't actually gone.
You can't.
It's dead to you, I know.
Well, it's still there, but if you haven't updated it to the Mavericks version or the Yosemite version, it won't work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't update it anymore because it's been removed from the store. So it'll still work if you had the Mavericks version, if you had the Yosemite version of iPhoto, the 9.6.2.
Right. So Mavericks. I had a person who asked me about this because he had a Mac where somehow he'd ended up, it had died. He restored from backup, and it was new Mac running Photos, and it would not import his library.
Ooh.
Because the iPhoto version was too old.
There's another utility,
iPhoto Library Upgrader, and that's what I told him about. He hadn't tried it last I'd heard, but it was an interesting
It's supposed to launch that dialog automatically, and and you're supposed to click the Learn More button, which takes you to the download page.
Yeah. So actually, just for those who were wondering, the $64,000 question of should I upgrade to El Capitan, I actually just wrote an article on Tidbits, which we could go even look at. Where is it? Called "Why You Should Upgrade," and let's close notes here. Come on, go away, and go back to there we go. Why you should upgrade on your own terms. There's a real question of, well, why should I upgrade? If this isn't going to actually make anything better for me, why should I take the effort to do this, especially if it might break iPhoto or whatever? And this iPhoto library upgrading story is one of the reasons that the longer you wait, the more pain you're going to have. And part of that is because the community knowledge starts to fade away. That, when the guy first asked me this question about iPhoto, I'd forgotten about iPhoto Library Upgrader.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was writing the article and I was telling the story, I was like, oh wait, there's a utility that does that. And and this is what I do. I mean, this is what I do, spend my days doing. So if I'm forgetting this stuff, it's going to be all the harder if you come to someone and say, hey, I have my Snow Leopard Mac and I want to upgrade and I'm still using Eudora, and the person's going, I knew about that 6 years ago.
We have customers all the time, but we had one last week, CIDER member, an iMac G4 running 10.4, and every document was in AppleWorks.
Yep.
And he bought a new Mac, and we have to find a copy of Pages 09.
Yep.
That will convert AppleWorks files. The current version of Pages won't.
Yeah.
So, don't wait 15 years to upgrade your computer.
And so Yep.
Yeah, if you were using 06 or 08 of iWorks, you need
Yeah.
that 09 to do the conversion to the current version.
And this is one of those things where it doesn't seem like it's a problem. You know, you're working away, your Mac is running fine, your software works the way you want it to, you know, all these upgrades didn't have anything that you wanted, and that seems great until such time as your Mac dies. Or you get an iPhone, a new iPhone, or you want to use iCloud or something like that, where iCloud starts in 10.7 Lion. So if you're running Snow Leopard, no iCloud. And so something at some point will force that upgrade. And the older the stuff is, the harder it's going to be. Yeah.
Now, most of my things that are JPEG format. Do I really have to worry about a JPEG?
So his question is most of his photos are JPEGs. In fact, probably all of them are JPEGs. That being the standard format. Maybe some RAW formats if you have if you're doing a camera RAW kind of thing. And the files themselves will be fine, but the app in which you store them, if you store them in an app, may be a problem. And so, for instance, iPhoto and Aperture store their photos. Well, Aperture had some other alternatives, but iPhoto wanted to store everything inside an iPhoto library package, which was it's a folder that sort of looks like a file. And there's a way of going into that package and finding all the originals, but it actually also stored, if you edited a photo, it stored the original and it stored the edited version, so you could always go back. So let's say that you can't get iPhoto working ever again, and Photos can't import it because it's too old. You will not lose your photos, but you will lose the connection between the originals and the edited, and you will have a ton of manual work in deciding which ones you want to keep. So if you did a lot of editing on a photo, maybe you want the edited one, but how are you going to know that for every photo? So you're going to have to look at everything manually, and it's going to be, again, a world of hurt to have waited for a very long time. So the photos themselves are safe, but the amount of effort you'll have to go into bringing them forward into something else may be very extensive.
Yeah, we had a meeting about that a couple of months ago, but don't wait too long, don't get more than 1 or 2 versions behind.
Yeah.
When we went to Yosemite and brought our Macs to their knees, system load.
Performance-wise.
Right. So El Capitan.
So Yosemite should not have done that. Well, no. This is actually an important fact, because the problems do happen, but it's not inherent to Yosemite. So when I switched to Yosemite, I didn't notice any difference at all in performance. Now, yeah, that's when I did it. I'm trying to think which machine I did it on. I think I did it on a 2008 Mac Pro. So it was pretty old. But I guess my point is that a lot of problems that get ascribed to an operating system are specific to an installation. And this is not to say they don't happen or that Apple should be excused in any way, shape, or form. But it does mean that it turns it more into a troubleshooting problem rather than a don't upgrade problem. And so there's a good question of, well, why did performance disappear? You know, was the hard disk horribly fragmented? You know, was there, you know, did you run an Apple hardware test? Maybe the RAM was bad. There's all sorts of possible things that can
How many upgrades have you done along? Did you start at 10.0 and have been upgrading all the way?
Yeah.
Over the years,
Yeah.
And actually, that's one thing that I hate to tell people to do this, because it's a royal pain in the butt. But every 3 to 5 to 7 years, start one from scratch.
And they removed the clean install option.
Yes, yes. You cannot, you've basically got to install and not migrate anything over using the migration assistant. Drag your data in the Finder. Install every app from scratch. Relicense them all, you know, all of that kind of stuff. You don't have to, maybe not paying for them, but, you know, enter the licensing information from scratch, because that gets you new preferences files. It gets you, you know, all sorts of data. Everything is written contiguously to the disk in a nice fashion. That will solve a ton of problems. And I mean, I think I actually last did it in 2008, in fact. When I got that Mac Pro, that was the last time I was like, okay, we're doing this from the bare metal up. And that's worthwhile.
Sometimes, well, it's a little easier, but you may end up doing a full erase install. Full backup, erase, and restore. Then everything goes back in contiguous space. And then if that doesn't work, erase and manually copy your files back.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to do. And as I said, I hate to recommend it, but my experience so far with performance in El Capitan, this is again a relatively elderly MacBook Air. It's fine. You know, it's not stunning, but this machine was never stunning, so I didn't expect anything out of it. I have not installed it on my 27-inch Retina iMac. Which, if the performance there is an issue, I would be very, very concerned, because that machine just flies normally. So, you know, there I wouldn't. But part of it is when Apple says that it will work on all these old Macs, they know that they're not making any points with people if the machine is unusable. So they're going to say, yeah, really, don't run it on these other machines if it's going to be unusable. And so I think that they are doing optimization under the hood as much as anything else to make sure it keeps running quickly. The other thing, actually, which is true, is there are technologies, and this is true of every version of the operating system, there are technologies which don't work on older machines. And so there will sometimes be software, separate apps, that will say, I can't run on anything older than such and such, because some Apple API will not actually function under the hood. And so you won't know that until the app says, sorry, I require a 2012 iMac or later. Games are going to be bad that way potentially, possibly some high-end professional software as well, where they're really pushing the envelope. But in any event, before we get too sidetracked, I'm actually happy to answer questions about absolutely anything. But I do want to tell you about all the rest of the little stuff here before I forget. So one thing that you're probably not even going to notice until, let's get out of full screen mode, because I hate full screen mode. Go away, go away. There is a new font in El Capitan.
I wish they'd used a different name. I remember the old San Francisco.
Yes, yes, it's called San Francisco, and the original San Francisco was a ransom note font. It was fabulous. So part of the reason why I wanted to show you that I'd heard this was the case. I don't know if I can do this. No? How do we zoom? Thought I could zoom. That's what I'm doing. Accessibility. I wouldn't have turned it off, so let's see. Zoom. Yes, there we go. Oh, wait, here we go. That's what I want. There we go. Okay, so what I wanted to show you, in fact, was, let me go back into here. So someone was telling me, I had not actually verified this. One of the problems with these sans serif fonts is telling the difference between a lowercase l and a capital I. Mm-hmm. So there's a lowercase l, and here is a capital I. Not a lot different. Oh, well.
A little fatter, a little shorter.
A little fatter, a little shorter. L-I.
And that can be a big issue, because there will be fake websites.
Yes.
You know, PAYPA1.
Yep.
And you think you're going to PayPal because it looks close.
I said I had been led to believe that it was a more significant difference between those two in the San Francisco font, but maybe not. So the San Francisco font is the same font that Apple's using for iOS 9 and the Apple Watch. And it's something that Apple has really, really hand tweaked to be highly legible. It's not a great way of demoing it on the projector, but nonetheless, it's a pretty good font. I mean, I'm not a font weenie, so I don't get into whether or not the serifs are just so, but it's a good font. It seems to be pretty readable. I don't have an easy way to show this, I don't think. Let's see. I can try. There should be a process. Yeah, see this? There's now a transfer process indicator for iCloud Drive. So when you're actually transferring a file to iCloud Drive, you can tell. Nice little benefit there, because it isn't instantaneous because it's out on the internet. And then let's see if yes, move it, delete it. Okay. So something that I'm not a huge mission control person, but nonetheless, mission control in Yosemite didn't show all your windows separately. It wanted to lump them all together, and that's now an option again in mission control in El Capitan. So you can pick exactly which window. There's the downloads window. Here's the desktop. Things like that. they've redone the way spaces look. So on a smaller machine here, you can see it's this nice little tight display at the top until I move up there, and then it shows me my spaces. And I can, drag something into a space and drag something into a space over here. I can just keep dragging, put them all in there, and they show up. Again, I'm not a huge fan of spaces. Come on, go there and close and close. There we go. Okay, so in Yosemite, if you double-click the title bar, sort of anywhere along here where it says desktop, it would minimize. Now, in El Capitan, it can expand as well.
Without going into full screen mode.
Without going into full screen mode. And that is controlled, get this, in the dock preference pane. It took me like 20 minutes to find this. Like I knew the feature was there. I'd heard about it. I was like, where would they hide it? So yeah, so it's the double click a Windows title bar to minimize or zoom. And so if you like minimizing, you can still do that too. Speaking of minimized.
Is the shift zoom still there or shift minimize?
I don't know.
Yes, it is.
The nice slow.
Was that 10.5 or 10.6 they added
yes. That? Someone's showing off. Let's try it. Where was I? Okay, this may not work because I may not have the right. May not be using the right. Not this one. I may not be using a good example here, but let's see. So I'm gonna Option double click. Yes, it is different. So double click is just expanding that way. Option double click. Wait. Option double click. No.
It's the old. It makes it as big as it needs to. Not as big as you want it.
But it did something different on one of them. Why only?
Very first one.
Yeah.
Try Option click the green button.
Okay, so that's what that one's doing. Okay, so if we double click, it's the same thing. Bring it back. Option double click. No.
You need something with more icons.
Yeah, okay, well, I got one of those. Okay, so here's what I wanted to show you, in fact. So this is probably only of interest to me. This is a feature that I appreciate. EPUBs, such as all of our Take Control books here. Woo, look, nice pretty covers and everything like that. They no longer show up as generic iBooks icons. This was driving me nuts. I mean, Apple had support for these things in iBooks for how long, and yet it wouldn't read custom icons for them. So nice little thing there. Okay, but let's see what happens when we let's shrink this back down. Okay, so if we double click, it goes full as
big as it needs to.
As big as it. Well, yeah, I'm not sure that Option's doing anything different.
Or as big as it can.
Yeah. We might have to find something. I don't think this will do anything. Yeah, there's no zoom at all for disk utility. So, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we can do anything different there. Okay, color picker. How many people liked their crayons?
I did.
Sorry, they're pencils now. Apple's gotten all sophisticated because they've got an Apple Pencil. So we have colored pencils now.
And they can stop paying Crayola.
Yeah, those licensing fees to Crayola were really bankrupting them. Yeah. That's where all that money went. You didn't realize that those billions of dollars they earned all to Crayola. So yeah, so they've now got a large set of colored pencils, and you can still expand this. Little people don't know this, that you can actually click at the bottom here and this tiny little. See that little dimple right there? That really, really little dimple? If you click there and drag, you get more little squares. Now, the utility of getting more little squares is not that you want to keep track of however many squares that is, 6 by 10 or something. It's that it allows you to put things to separate your colors. So if you have collections, you could keep them far apart and then keep track of them. Because it's absolutely maddening when you've gotten 15 or 20 color swatches in there, you totally can't remember what they're for. So I make this thing as big as I can, and then I use it, and then I hide things in different parts of it to be able to access them. Apart from that, it doesn't really look much different in terms of the you still got the you still can get crayon. Oh, you can just get the colors. Oh well. It still shows you the web safe colors and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit redesigned, but not really significantly. If you use Find My Friends, there's now a Find My Friends widget on the Mac that you can show in Notification Center. So there's my family. And look, they're all where I expect them to be. That's nice. That's what I use Find My Friends for, to make sure everyone's where I expect them to be. Let's see.
Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. The trick on that is you put your kids in Find My Friends, and then you can track their iPhones or iPod Touches.
And you notice that was the deal. There's my 16-year-old.
Make sure they are where they said they were going to be.
So this is an interesting lesson, a little parenting tip that some friends of ours passed on after they did it wrong, which is never let your child buy their own technology. Because if they buy their own technology, they don't really see much reason in letting you set the rules for it. So my son gets the hand-me-down iPhones. If he wanted to buy his own iPhone, well, technically he could, but he's never going to against a free one. But that means we get to say, Find My Friends is always turned on. With him, it's actually not a problem at all, although it's nice to, if he's coming back from a cross-country meet or something, to be able to know, when he's going to arrive back at the school. But I do know parents who would kill to have their kids appropriately located. Excuse me. Let's see. Okay, the last. How many people have one of the newest MacBooks with a Force Touch trackpad? Anyone? No one? Okay, I have not gotten to try one of these yet either, except for like once really briefly. But they've got this really cool new Force Touch trackpad, which does not have a physical button. It can detect how hard you're pressing, and it has this really clever feedback mechanism where it actually makes a little sound and like, is it just sound or just sound and vibration? I don't know exactly.
You swear it's clicking.
You really do swear that it's clicking. I mean, you're kind of looking at it. I got to try one at the new MacBook has it.
Yeah.
And Jason Snell used to be at Macworld, had one for review, and I got to try it at his house briefly. If you do not like this feature, in El Capitan, you can turn it off. Very, very, very little thing, but if you can tap completely silently on a Force Touch trackpad. So that's the kind of thing that they're getting down into some really tweaky little options.
For kids typing in class that doesn't make any noise.
I guess.
There was some viral video from like Funny or Die where a guy brought a manual typewriter to class and started typing his notes.
I think I saw someone who actually who actually did a USB manual manual typewriter as a USB keyboard. Cool. So he could, or a Bluetooth keyboard, so he could type on an iPad using.
Well, David Pogue had the typewriter app. To make it look like those old typewriters.
So I don't know if I can make this happen.
Tom Hanks, that's right.
If you look really carefully when I launch Safari, maybe you'll get this. There's a new spinning pizza of death. Come on. Nope, it's not going to do it. It's too fast. What can I do that will slow it down? Photos. Let's try photos. Come on.
Oh, that got bigger when you were wiggling it.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Come on, I can't do it again.
Yeah.
Oh, there did it. You're going the wrong way. Maybe I'm not wiggling it right.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how long I spent trying to make this stupid feature work. I don't know. Any event, the spinning pizza of death is now really, really finely rendered and smooth, so it's not quite such a pizza. They don't.
More CPU power.
There's more CPU power that goes to the spinning pizza of death. So, and it's funny because I've always called it the spinning pizza of death because that was what we called it back when it first appeared. It's not really true anymore. I mean, so people now call it things like the beach ball or whatnot. I was like, but no, it's the spinning pizza of death. So probably people don't use that term as much as
Wait a minute, I'm busy doing something.
Yeah. The SPOD, spinning pizza of death. So, okay, any other questions about El Capitan? I cannot pretend to know everything about it, but I'll answer what I can. Yeah. Notes, yes. Yeah, so maybe you know more about what Notes used to do.
It used to sync to your mail.
To mail,
as a fake IMAP folder.
That's right. That was what was. I knew it because it did sync.
Yeah.
But it wasn't syncing through iCloud. And
I think in 10.7 when they added or 10.7 or 10.8 when they added iCloud, Notes started syncing through iCloud.
No, that was the whole point. Is it didn't. It's just in this one that it starts syncing through iCloud. I think
it's in the iCloud setting though.
Yes, it looks like it is, but it's not. It wasn't doing it, and that was the problem. And I know I ran into this because I changed some stuff with Apple IDs and lost some data because I was actually expecting it to sync, and it wasn't on iCloud. I couldn't move it to iCloud because it was synced some other way. So yeah. I had exactly the same problem, and I don't know how to get it back. Because I was
in Yosemite, which I'm still running. Notes does sync through iCloud, and you can get to your notes from the iCloud website.
Okay, so maybe it was in Yosemite that it changed, and not. I could have. I mean, there's certainly Apple's certainly talking about the new Notes being iCloud syncing.
The Notes also syncs to any IMAP folder. You have Google Notes. You can have. In fact, if you go on a lot of people's machines, they log on to all these different IMAP services. You'll find that.
Yeah. You set up your Google account. You set up your Yahoo account, and it automatically adds Notes.
Right. So when you go to Notes, it says Accounts, and they have on my Mac account. But when you go to Accounts, that's when you can pick a different account. And so there's my Notes. Okay.
What?
You might have made your notes all in Google and not realized it because.
That's a really interesting question.
And so you really need to make sure you have your IMAP accounts on, sync them, move the notes to one, and then turn off the other one.
In the Notes app on the computer and on the iDevices, there's no obvious way to know which account your note will be on. You have to go into settings and tell it what the default account is. On the Mac, it does work a little better. Yeah, so I've got my iCloud notes.
Yeah.
How's that different than my Apple ID notes, though?
Probably got a different Apple ID associated with that.
Oh, yes. This is the CIDER Apple ID, and this is my personal Apple ID.
So why isn't?
But it doesn't do it. It's a trickier interface on the iDevice to know which account you're actually creating a note in. And we get people coming in, all my notes are gone. Well, because you switched to viewing the Google Notes, not the Apple Notes.
But so, okay, where are my Google Notes then? And how would I create a Google Note?
Under Accounts in your Google settings.
Well, but see, it's set. It is set. If I switch to my Google account, there's Notes.
Notes are turned on. So that will be in your email.
Right, but why isn't it showing up over here?
Good point.
Go to your accounts. There.
Google has got mail turned on, or Notes turned on.
Make a new note, and they should give it an option where they can.
No, it made it on the account that it was selected on the left.
Okay, then make a new note on the other.
Let's see if I can.
That's on your Mac only, so that won't sync. No. See if Notes Preferences has a default Notes.
There's no preferences.
Oh.
That's weird. That's just strange. That's what this opens. Yeah.
Maybe.
I wonder.
In your mail program. Maybe you've never, well, it should show it there. You've never made a note on your Gmail account.
Yeah, but I mean, that it
should
it's
still
entirely
show it there.
possible. Yeah.
And you might have notes turned off in Gmail.
That's most likely because I don't think I've used notes in Gmail or in Google. Yeah, but in any event, I had exactly the same problem where I didn't really care too much about my notes. Like I wasn't backing them up and paying a lot of attention to them, and then all of a sudden they were gone. I'm like, huh, I wonder where they went. And I actually didn't. I didn't pay attention. It wasn't. It was just data I had in there. Sort of stuffed periodically, so I didn't use it much, and then I was just not there when I wanted to go back and get it. Yeah. Well, so here was the reason why what happened to me was, if you remember way back when Apple switched from MobileMe to iCloud, if you switched for the switch, they gave you a bunch of space for a year. They gave you 25 gig of space or some amount of extra space. And so my MobileMe account was Adam Engst at mac.com or me.com. And so that account is what I used for iCloud stuff because it had a lot more space. But my ace@tibbets.com Apple ID, which is my main one and what I used for purchasing everything, was what I used for everything else. And so I ended up with this kind of awkward use of two of them all the time. And at some point I said, this is just getting to be too much of a nightmare. I need to switch to one. And so I shut off I basically took over everything on the ace@tibbets.com one. And at some point in that process is when notes went away.
I bet if you added your mac.com account, they would show up again.
That's very possible. Yeah. So, and it keeps, I mean, of course, everything keeps trying to get me to log into it again. I can't make it go away, but the problem was just that too much stuff was using this other address, and I wanted to make it rational because I have 3 Apple IDs I have to use regularly as a result. So, other questions about El Capitan or anything else? Yeah. Performance is really hard to say. My suspicion is it'll be basically the same. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if Macworld or one of the people with benchmark setups actually, will test that.
That is one of their 2 points. It's a better experience and it's faster.
I never believe those things.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, they always say that, and maybe it benchmarks a little faster, but things also always slow down over time. So it's it might be faster, it might not be, but I doubt you'll notice anything. The other real problem with performance, you may have noticed this as well, is that you get a new machine. Say you make a big jump in machines, and the new one is radically faster. It feels radically faster for about a day or 2, and then it's normal. And then you notice if you go backwards, but it doesn't feel fast anymore. Just other things feel slow. And so that's sort of what I feel about all these performance claims is like, yeah, it'll be nice for a day, and then it'll just feel like the way it should be. So, so it's a little hard to get too worked up about that because it just becomes the new normal. If you didn't think the normal was bad before, you probably won't think the normal is any worse now. So, yeah.
I heard a discussion on Apple and the card, and they're saying you're going to be able to lock it so that you can do kid monitoring. You can define the geography in which the kid can drive. It will know where the kid is, and if he exceeds the speed limit, he'll be immediately.
So you're talking about CarPlay?
Or the Apple Car itself.
Or the Apple Car.
Rumored Apple Car.
Well, the Apple Car itself will just drive your children around where they need to go. So that will. So I actually, I don't know very much about CarPlay because despite having bought 2 new cars in the last, one at the end of 2014 and one at the beginning of 2015, I never saw a car with CarPlay. Despite going to a bunch of car dealers and looking at all these cars and things like that.
You were looking at Ferrari.
That's what I realized. Like, at some point, it's like, where are all these cars with CarPlay? Apple had this big list of everyone supporting CarPlay. The only shipping car, I believe, possibly until maybe this month with CarPlay is the Ferrari FF. That is it. So that said, the claim is that the 2016 Honda Accord will have CarPlay or Android Drive or whatever they call it, as options. But despite all the fuss that Apple made about CarPlay, it just wasn't anywhere. You could buy third-party head units from Alpine and the likes to be able to install it aftermarket. But I was very distressed because complicated reasons, replacing a 19-year-old car and a 13-year-old car. We ended up with 2 new cars, and the technology, previous technology we had was cassette decks. So we were really rocking the tech back in the the 19 and 13-year-old cars. But the technology in these cars is terrible. I really would like to see Apple, or frankly even Android, just to see something better, because car manufacturers have gotten very good at making cars, and they really suck at making interfaces.
Well, they've all been using Microsoft Sync.
Yeah. I think even Ford moved away from that.
Yeah.
They're not going AirPlay at all. Interesting. That's what they're saying. They're also not going electric, so I'm not going there. We have we got a Nissan Leaf for our second car, and concomitantly put in solar panels. And let me tell you, driving an electric car that's free to drive is really liberating. It's like wow, it doesn't cost me anything. I'll take it home and plug it into my panels. And the electric car is just, couldn't bring it here because it only has 80-mile range, but it is the.
You could bring it here, you're just gonna get home.
Yeah. Well, I figured I could probably run an extension cord, but it doesn't charge that fast off 110. So, but it's just a truly great driving experience. Electric cars are absolutely the future. They're just so much more fun to drive. But a Nissan Leaf. So, well, in Ithaca. So we put into. Yeah, solar panels run just great here. Yeah, it actually does have this little solar panel in the back, and I'm like, really, what's that do? And the guy's like, it charges the 12-volt battery to keep the radio running. The solar stuff is a really big deal, and just vast amounts of it going in Ithaca. And in New York State in general, New York had really great incentives for doing it. They're starting to go down now fairly precipitously because so many people took advantage of it. But it was radically cheap to put in, in terms of the payback time and everything like that. But we heat our house with geothermal, and now we're driving the geothermal with solar. So in theory, we should be entirely net zero on heating and transportation.
We're kind of here. We're between Niagara Falls and the Gannett nuclear plant, so we have 2 giant sources of electricity here.
Cheap power.
Yeah.
It is not cheap, and solar is very subsidized in Rochester.
Is it tier 2?
There's huge deals with all this. If you're in the city, there are huge subsidies. For less than $5,000, you can get $30,000, $40,000.
Yeah. Between the federal, state, and local subsidies, it is absolutely worth looking into. Great stuff. And honestly, we have an iPad. To bring this slightly back to the Apple, we have an iPad 1, the original iPad, and at some point, someone sent us a refrigerator mount, a magnetic holder for the iPad. And so what our iPad 1 does is it sits on the refrigerator and it loads the web page for our solar panels. So we can walk up to the iPad and see how much power we generated. And man, let me tell you, the whole thing about the sun, getting stronger throughout the months, it's true. August, we're just not getting, bright sunny days, we're not getting the solar power that we got in July, even though it was rainy. So it's really pretty impressive. The Tesla is an amazing car. Have people gotten to drive a Tesla here? Yeah, a couple of you. Oh, at MacTech, that's right. Yeah, Todd was there. The Tesla is a fully electric car, but it is also a luxury, sort of the combination between an electric car, a luxury sedan, and a sports car. And it is the most amazing thing to drive. The newest model, with its highest end, tricked out in every way, has something called ludicrous mode, where it can go 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds.
Never show that part again.
By the way, I drove on the
Insane mode's the lower one.
was buried before ludicrous.
Yeah.
I was in that, had to tell him to stop. I could not handle the acceleration. It was the worst roller coaster ride I've ever done. And that was on a straight.
My brother-in-law was a VP at Google. He has a Tesla, and it was one of the older ones. And he says he has a friend who, when the new one with insane mode came out, and he has a friend who, he said his friend would race motorcycles, so 100 miles an hour, and he had laid motorcycles down in races. So this guy, daredevil, fearless and whatnot, it was the same thing. He said in insane mode, the guy said he was scared. You know, he's like, this is not safe. We should not be doing this.
Just as a note, with insane mode, you can't keep at that speed for a long time.
No.
But the acceleration for that, 500 feet or whatever is totally.
Yeah, there's a speed limit on the roads. There's no acceleration limit.
Yeah. And actually, so the poor man's version of the Tesla, the Nissan Leaf, you don't get 0 to 60 worth a damn, but 0 to 30 is pretty good. And accelerating uphill, it just zooms. It doesn't labor in any way. It's not downshifting. It's not revving. It's not that. I took had showing some friends, took some friends up a really steep hill. I was able to accelerate to 75 going up a steep hill with 4 people in the car. And it never ceased to accelerate. It was amazing. On the flat, the acceleration curve doesn't allow it to do that. I was a little worried about getting home that particular day because we had been driving. But. Oh, really? Elon Musk is a fascinating guy. He's not very nice, but he's very interesting. So, well worth watching, I imagine. There's a website called Wait But Why, and the guy who does it is a very interesting writer, and he does these really long articles where he just dives into a topic. And Elon Musk actually contacted him and said, "Hi, I want you to write about SpaceX." And so before he writes about SpaceX, which he did, it's like 100 pages. I mean, he writes almost novel length articles. He actually did an interview with Elon Musk and wrote about Elon Musk and everything. It's again a fascinating read about Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX. So.
Yeah, I read that. It linked from one of the other blogs.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, here we go. And so this guy, he writes really interesting stuff. Just make sure you leave plenty of time. It goes on and on.
One of the things to know about the Leaf is the resale costs. Some of the used ones you can find in this area in the $10,000 to $12,000 range. They're only a couple of years old.
Really? So they're selling for that little? Whoa, because that wasn't what I'd been reading earlier on.
Well, new they start at 21, so they're not that inexpensive. I'm sorry, not that expensive.
Yeah, new. The low end model is $19,500 before the $7,500. No, sorry, it's $26,500 before the $7,500 tax rebate, so it ends up being like $19,000. So yeah, they're not that expensive. But
there are people apparently who lease them and they like them enough, and the resale market is very favorable for buyers.
Yeah.
The other thing to note is that you park in the East End lot and every other lots in Rochester, they have charging stations.
Sister Cities does too.
Currently, the city of Rochester is subsidizing the cost of the charging
for short term, yeah. But I mean, and realistically, I mean, it's fascinating because again, this is some of the technology which is finally coming. I mean, in some sense, we're looking at with Apple, this is really, really mature technology. But when you start looking at the electric cars, it's still really new and they're still doing funky things. So another one of the big models, electric car models, is the Chevy Volt. When they solved the range problem, they only have like 35 miles range on electric, but the Chevy Volt then has a gas engine, which gets 35 to 40 miles to the gallon for another 300 miles. And it's just a normal, sort of a normal car. So that actually, in some ways, is the best of both worlds for you want around town electric, but then you can still take a trip. The problem with it, when I test drove it, I wasn't very impressed with it as a car, but the powertrain was really impressive. And so we're starting to see a lot of that kind of stuff really kicking in. And as I say, what Tesla is doing is amazing. They've turned the electric car into the most desirable car around. Again, Consumer Reports giving it 103 out of 100. In their ratings. Yeah, it's not cheap. not cheap. But on the other hand, people buy really fancy cars. So, you know, you drive around town, you see some interesting
And they're
stuff.
supposed to be coming out with a new sedan that's only in the 60 to 70 range.
I heard the Model X is still going to be pretty high. So
It's got
gull wing doors.
no falcon wing
Falcon
doors
wing doors.
behind you.
That's so you can swoop,
Yeah,
because the gulls don't swoop well enough.
I can go wee, open and close. So if you open and close them fast enough, can you fly? So to reserve one, how much do they want to reserve it?
So yeah, I think it's $5,000 just to reserve.
Yeah, five.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the Tesla that actually is not obvious from looking at it is it's huge. It is actually 6 inches wider and 9 inches longer than a Subaru Outback. The Grand Caravan, yeah. And the Model X is going to be basically the same size, but it'll, I think, look more like that size because it's a little bit more sport utility vehicle. Yeah, no, that's definitely going to be one of those problems. I don't think. Oh, and actually, the other problem. Actually, is there a Tesla dealer in this area at all? So there are 3 Teslas in Ithaca that I know of. So what I've heard,
They deliver right to your door.
and what
They pick up your old car, a van.
yeah, and what I've heard is, in fact, this is the same thing for service. If you need service, they will send a flatbed with a Tesla on it to your house from like the Hudson Valley, where the nearest store is. They will leave you with the loaner Tesla. They will take yours back to the workshop, fix it up, and then bring it back. This is totally not worthwhile. I mean, all the environmental savings of driving an electric car are gone, but nonetheless, it's very cool. And for $120,000, it's nice that they do that.
Better be, yeah.
Yeah.
17-inch screen.
Yes. Yes.
The UI is so-so. I mean, it's about as good as a car manufacturer could do a UI for something that you don't want to totally stare at and peer over.
It did take me a while to find the control for the charging port. As in, where do you open this? You know, you're kind of expecting a little pull switch or something. No, it's on the screen. And you had to like navigate to the right part of the screen and then find the button and click it, and then this hidden door pops out and back.
They all have 3GM, so all their firmware is downloaded at
Yeah.
a regular basis. So you've got always the latest firmware in your car.
And there is an Easter egg. I forget how you get to it, where it will pretend to give you controls like the James Bond car, a submarine car. I forget how you get to that. Yeah. Yeah. So there's been a lot of rumors about Apple doing cars as well, and one never knows. But the person I know in Silicon Valley who is the highest level says that they are almost certainly true. And if you think about the amount of money that Apple has and the way Apple tends to aim for platforms, cars are platforms. And so, you know, Apple is in a situation where if they want this company to keep growing, they have to go into entirely new markets. And at some point, the smartphones and computers, that market will be saturated. May not be right away, but so Apple has to think long term. So I actually, from what I've seen, would believe fairly firmly that Apple's working on a car. The real question is whether or not it's a car one drives or if it's an autonomous car, because you're not driving it right. Well,
and Andy Anako had an interesting thought on MacBreak Weekly recently. It's kind of a cross between Uber and Zipcar.
Yeah.
Especially if you live in a city, you may not need to own a car.
Robo-taxis.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Brad Templeton who was one of the early internet people, and he was sort of at Google. He's somewhat associated, but I'm not quite sure what he does. But he actually writes a lot about robocars now in terms of things like the liability and what the technology is. Yeah, but it's really interesting stuff because, for instance, like a Nissan Leaf, which doesn't have significant range, well, who cares if it's a robocar? Robocars don't have any range anxiety. They know how far they can go. And they know how far it will take them to get back to their charging station, and they will plug in and they will not be bored while they wait to charge. So, so you do not need a robocar to have huge electric range. You just need it to be smart. And that's easy stuff to program.
Did you see the video of the Tesla robot charging arm plugging itself in?
Yes.
That was so scary. Giant silver robot arm bouncing its way around to find the plug to get in.
Oh, I was at Empire Farm Days a couple of years ago. I grew up on a farm, so my parents and I go to Empire Farm Days. And some of the automatic milking stuff they've got is really, really freaky. The cow walks in and they're sort of clamped down. It's like sucks on, milks the cow, door opens, cow walks out. Very, very weird.
All the cows are RFID tagged and
robo cows. I'm telling you. Yup. Well, thank you all. A wonderful conversation. And sorry I didn't have more like fancy stuff to show you, but the good part of that is that El Capitan is not going to be a shocking upgrade. It will be hopefully a nice smooth upgrade that will just be a little bit better. All right. Thanks.
And don't forget, Saturdays at noon on FM 90.1 is Sound Bites. We are live on the air answering your questions. We simulcast on the internet and do a video stream on YouTube. So 3 guys in a radio studio. It's a very exciting video. But if you have questions between meetings, you can go there. And of course, this coming Saturday, we will have our Q&A meeting at the Tech Age Adult Computer Learning Center at the JCC from 3 to 5. And so another place to come and get questions. Yeah. Sometimes it gets hot in that studio. Actually, it's usually cold because they have to keep all that equipment cool, so the air conditioning is cranked up. All righty. And thank you all for coming, braving the heat, and we'll see you all next week or next month. What is next month's meeting? Anyone remember what next month's meeting is? Yeah, October. It's on a Wednesday. We know the second Wednesday of October. We'll get it on the web as soon as at the board meeting.